My name is Tula Meadows. I'm 33. At 10:47 p.m. on a Friday night in March, I was standing in my parents' driveway in my pajamas, screaming at my father to give me back my car keys, while my brother Michael stumbled into my brand new Mazda CX-30 with a blood alcohol level that would later be measured at 19. My father stood between us, his hand raised like a traffic cop, and said the words that would break our family apart. "Let him go, Tula. He just needs to blow off steam." "He's drunk, Dad. He can barely stand." Michael's laugh cut through the cold air. "Relax, sis. I'm just going to Denny's." "You're not taking my car." My voice cracked. I'd made the final payment on that Mazda exactly 11 days earlier, 62 monthly payments of $347. I'd celebrated by keeping the receipt in my wallet. My father stepped closer to me, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet tone. "Michael's had a rough week. His girlfriend broke up with him. You can let him borrow your car for one night, or you can be selfish about it. Your choice." "It's not about being selfish. He's going to kill someone." "Don't be dramatic." My mother appeared in the doorway, wrapping her cardigan tighter. "Michael's a good driver. He's never had an accident." That was a lie, but I didn't know it yet. Michael was already backing out of the driveway. I lunged forward, but my father grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. "Let him go." I watched my taillights disappear down Hickory Lane. My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit down on the cold concrete. At 2:33 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered because I already knew. "Miss Meadows? This is Officer Chen with the Wilkes-Barre Police Department. Your vehicle was involved in a single-car collision on Route 115. The driver fled the scene." My Mazda was totaled. $4,200 in damage to a guardrail. No injuries, thank God, but Michael was gone, vanished into the night like he always did. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I need to take you back 6 years to explain why I didn't see this coming. I need to tell you about Ray Pulaski. I met Ray exactly once, at a city council meeting in September 2019. I was there because Landmark Credit Union was sponsoring a financial literacy program for seniors, and I'd been asked to give a 3-minute presentation. Ray sat in the front row. He was 74, with thick white hair and suspenders holding up his work pants. After the meeting, he shook my hand. "You did good up there," he said. "My wife could have used a program like that before she passed. She never understood interest rates." We talked for maybe 10 minutes. He told me about his late wife Dorothy, about their tomato garden, about how he still made her potato soup recipe every Sunday even though he was eating it alone now. He smelled like Old Spice and peppermint candies. "You seem like a girl who pays attention," he said before he left. "That's rare. Don't lose that." I didn't know then that Ray Pulaski would save my life. I didn't know he was already collecting evidence. I didn't know that on a Tuesday night in October 2019, Michael had crashed into Ray's mailbox while driving drunk, that my father had showed up with $1,200 in cash and made it disappear, that Ray had recorded the entire conversation on his phone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After the crash, I filed a police report. Michael was charged with DUI, hit and run, and unauthorized use of a vehicle. My father hired Gerald Gilmore, the most expensive defense attorney in Luzerne County, for $15,000. At Sunday dinner 3 days later, my mother served pot roast like nothing had happened. Michael sat across from me, scrolling through his phone. He hadn't apologized, hadn't even looked at me. "Tula." My father's voice made me look up. "Gerald says the charges might disappear if you don't cooperate with the prosecutor." "What?" "If you tell them Michael had permission to use your car, this all goes away." I set down my fork carefully. "He didn't have permission. He took my keys." "But no one saw that." My father's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's your word. You can say you told him he could borrow it." "That's perjury." "It's family." My mother's voice was soft, pleading. "Michael made a mistake, honey. He's already suffering enough. Do we really need to involve the courts?" Michael finally looked up from his phone. Come on, Tula. Don't be a bitch about this. Something cold settled in my chest. I'm not lying for you. My father's fist hit the table. The water glasses jumped. He's your brother. This is what family does. We protect each other. He could have killed someone. But he didn't. My mother was crying now. Why do you always have to make everything worse? Why can't you just help him this once? This once? The laugh that came out of me didn't sound like mine. How many times has he driven drunk, Mom? How many times have you covered for him? The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. My father stood up slowly. If you testify against your brother, you're not welcome in this house anymore. I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I left the pot roast on my plate and walked out. That was the last Sunday dinner I attended. Michael's case crawled through the system. I gave my statement to the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ellen Watkins, who wore red lipstick and took notes in perfect shorthand. I told her everything. The stolen keys, my father's hand on my arm, Michael's laugh as he drove away drunk. Has your brother done this before? Ellen asked. I don't know, I admitted. But my parents act like it's normal. Ellen's pen paused. Act like what's normal? Protecting him, making excuses, paying to make problems disappear. Do you have proof of that? I didn't. Not yet. The preliminary hearing was set for June 14th. I took the day off from Landmark Credit Union, where I'd been promoted to assistant manager 3 months earlier. My boss, Caroline Torres, had signed the time-off request without questions, but she squeezed my hand as I left. You're doing the right thing, she said, even when it doesn't feel like it. I wore my navy suit. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Michael sat at the defense table in a borrowed tie, looking young and sorry. Gerald Gilmore was polished and confident. My parents sat directly behind Michael. They didn't look at me. The prosecutor presented the police report. The officer testified. The photos of my destroyed Mazda were entered as evidence. The guardrail damage, the abandoned vehicle. Then Gerald Gilmore stood up. Miss Meadows, he said, his voice warm and friendly. You love your brother, don't you? Yes. And you wouldn't want to see him go to jail over a misunderstanding? It wasn't a misunderstanding. He stole my car and drove drunk. Stole is a strong word. Did you and Michael perhaps have an agreement that he could borrow your vehicle when needed? No. But you've lent him your car before, haven't you? I hesitated. Once, 2 years ago, during the day, when he was sober. Gerald smiled like I'd just proven his point. So it wouldn't be unusual for Michael to assume he could borrow your car? He didn't assume. He took my keys from my purse while I was asleep. Did you see him take the keys? No, but... So you don't actually know who took the keys? My face burned. Who else would have taken them? Perhaps you forgot where you put them. Perhaps Michael found them and thought you'd left them out for him to use. Perhaps this is all a tragic misunderstanding between siblings. I looked at Michael. He was staring at the table, his jaw tight. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said quietly. He was drunk. He crashed my car. He ran away. The judge set a trial date for September. Walking out of the courthouse, I passed my mother in the hallway. She was crying, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I hope you're happy, she whispered. You're tearing this family apart. I kept walking. The next 3 months were the loneliest of my life. My phone stopped ringing. My cousins unfollowed me on social media. My Aunt Jennifer, who'd been my favorite since childhood, sent me a text. Family forgives, you should learn that. I didn't respond. At work, I threw myself into my duties, processing loans, training new tellers, staying late to reconcile accounts that didn't need reconciling. Caroline noticed. You're here until 7 every night, she said one evening in July. What's going on? Nothing, just busy. Tula. She sat down across from me. I've managed this branch for 12 years. I know when someone's avoiding home. I told her everything. The whole ugly story spilled out. When I finished, Caroline was quiet for a long moment. My brother was an addict, she finally said. Pills, then heroin. My parents enabled him for years, gave him money, let him live at home, made excuses. He died at 28, overdose in a Walmart parking lot. She met my eyes. The kindest thing I ever did was stop helping him. He called me a traitor. My parents called me heartless. But at least I tried to love him enough to let him face consequences. Your parents aren't loving your brother. They're killing him slowly. I cried in her office for 20 minutes. On August 2nd, something shifted. I was working the teller window when a man in his 50s approached. He was nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot. I need to speak to someone about Michael Meadows, he said quietly. My heart stopped. I'm Michael's sister. His face changed. Oh, I'm sorry. I should. No, please, what is it? He glanced around the empty lobby. My name is David Pulaski. My father was Ray Pulaski. He passed away last month. The name registered. The man from the city council meeting, the tomato garden, the peppermint candies. I'm so sorry, I said. Thank you. David pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I was going through Dad's things. He left this for you. It's marked, Give to Tula Meadows if Michael Meadows is ever charged with DUI. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. It was thick, sealed with packing tape. I don't understand. David's voice dropped even lower. My dad was struck by a drunk driver in October 2019. The driver fled. Dad called the police. But before they arrived, a man showed up with cash and convinced Dad not to press charges. Dad took the money. He needed it for Mom's medical bills, but he recorded the conversation. The driver was your brother. The man with the cash was your father. The floor tilted. Dad felt guilty about taking that money until the day he died, David continued. He made me promise that if your brother ever hurt someone else, I'd give you this recording. He said you were the only one in your family who seemed to give a damn about doing the right thing. I opened the envelope in Caroline's office. Inside was a USB drive, a handwritten note, and a photocopy of a police report from October 14th, 2019. The note was brief. Tula, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and your brother has hurt someone else. I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to stop him when I had the chance. Money makes cowards of good people. The recording on this drive is yours to do with as you please. I've also included the police report from the night your brother hit my mailbox and nearly hit me. Your father gave me $1,200 to stay quiet. I took it. I'm ashamed of that. But I'm not ashamed of this. I believe you're strong enough to do what I couldn't. The truth matters, even when it costs everything. Ray. I listened to the recording 4 times. My father's voice was unmistakable. Ray, I'm George Meadows. This is my son Michael. I think we can settle this without involving insurance companies or police reports, don't you? He was driving drunk. He destroyed my mailbox. He could have killed me. I understand you're upset. How about I pay for the damages right now? Cash, plus a little extra for your trouble. I already called the police. I know, but you can tell them it was a misunderstanding when they arrive. Tell them you want to drop it. I'll give you $1,500, right now. A pause. Then Ray's voice, older and tired. $1,200. I won't take more than the damage costs. You're a good man, Ray. This stays between us? I'm not a good man. I'm a broke man. There's a difference. The recording ended. I sat in that office for an hour, staring at the USB drive. Then I called Ellen Watkins. The trial was scheduled for September 22nd. With Ray's recording, Ellen had new ammunition. She filed motions. Gerald Gilmore filed counter motions. My father hired a private investigator to dig into Ray's background, looking for anything to discredit him. They found nothing. Ray Pulaski had been a postal worker for 43 years, a church usher, a youth baseball coach. He'd never been arrested, never been sued, never even had a speeding ticket. On September 20th, 2 days before trial, my father called me. I hadn't heard his voice in 4 months. Tula, we need to talk. I don't think we do. That recording is inadmissible. Gerald says it was obtained illegally. Ray made the recording on his own property during a conversation he was part of. It's legal. Silence. Then, you're really going to do this? You're going to send your own brother to jail? I'm going to tell the truth. Michael's going to jail because of what he did. You've always been jealous of him. My father's voice turned cold. Ever since you were kids, you couldn't stand that he was smarter, more popular, better at everything. This is just revenge. I almost laughed. Michael has crashed 4 cars in 5 years, Dad. How many of those did you pay to cover up? That's none of your... How much money have you spent keeping him out of jail? 20,000? 30? How many people has he hurt that I don't even know about? He's my son. So am I. The words ripped out of me. I'm your daughter, and you picked him. You've always picked him. Even when he's wrong, even when he's dangerous, you pick him. My father's breathing was heavy on the line. If you go through with this, I'll cut you out of everything. The will, the trust, the lake house. You'll get nothing. I never wanted anything from you except to be seen. You couldn't even give me that. I hung up. September 22nd arrived with cold rain. The Luzerne County Courthouse was a gray stone building on River Street, imposing and old. I arrived at 8:30 a.m., even though the trial didn't start until 9 o'clock. I wanted to be early. I wanted to be ready. The courtroom filled slowly. Michael sat at the defense table in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. My parents sat in the front row behind him, my mother clutching a rosary. Gerald Gilmore shuffled papers with the confidence of a man who'd never lost a case he cared about. I sat on the prosecution's side, alone. The judge entered at 9:03. The Honorable Patricia Keene, a woman in her 60s, with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. Ellen Watkins stood. Your Honor, the Commonwealth calls David Pulaski to the stand. David walked to the witness box with his father's envelope in his hands. He was sworn in. Ellen asked him to explain the contents. David's voice was steady. My father, Ray Pulaski, was struck by the defendant on October 14, 2019. The defendant was driving under the influence. Before police arrived, the defendant's father, George Meadows, offered my father cash to drop the complaint. My father accepted, but he recorded the conversation. Gerald Gilmore shot to his feet. Objection! This is hearsay, and... The recording speaks for itself, Your Honor, Ellen said. She held up the USB drive. We'd like to play it for the court. Judge Keene nodded. I'll allow it. The courtroom speakers crackled to life. My father's voice filled the room. Ray, I'm George Meadows. This is my son Michael. I think we can settle this without involving insurance companies or police reports, don't you? I watched my father's face. The color drained from it slowly, like water leaving a sink. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Michael stared straight ahead, his jaw locked. The recording played in full. 93 seconds of my father bribing Ray Pulaski. 93 seconds of evidence that this wasn't Michael's first offense. That there was a pattern. That my parents had been covering for him for years. When it ended, the silence in the courtroom was absolute. Gerald Gilmore stood slowly. Your Honor, this recording has no bearing on the current charges. Mr. Meadows is not on trial here. No, but his son is. Judge Keene's voice was ice. And this recording establishes a pattern of behavior and parental enabling that goes directly to the defendant's character and likelihood of rehabilitation. It stays in. Ellen called her next witness, Officer Maria Santos, who'd responded to the scene of my crashed Mazda. She testified about the damage, the skid marks, the abandoned vehicle. She testified that Michael's phone had been tracked to a bar 6 miles away, where he'd been found at 4:17 a.m., still legally drunk. Then Ellen called me. I walked to the witness stand on legs that felt like water. The court clerk swore me in. I sat down and finally looked at my family. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother was crying silently. My father stared at me with something that looked like hatred. Ellen's questions were straightforward. I answered them calmly. Did you give Michael permission to use your car that night? No. Where were your keys? In my purse, in the guest bedroom where I was sleeping. Did you see Michael take them? No. But when I woke up, my keys were gone and Michael was backing out of the driveway in my car. Was Michael intoxicated? Yes. He could barely walk straight. Did you try to stop him? Yes. My father physically restrained me. A murmur went through the courtroom. Judge Keene's gaze shifted to my father. Gerald Gilmore's cross-examination was brutal. Miss Meadows, isn't it true that you've had a contentious relationship with your brother for years? We've had disagreements. Isn't it true that you resented Michael's academic success? No. Isn't it true that you've been estranged from your family since this incident? Yes. And isn't it possible that your testimony today is motivated by anger rather than truth? I looked at Gerald Gilmore, at his expensive tie and his practiced sympathy, at the way he stood between Michael and consequence like my parents always had. I'm not angry, I said quietly. I'm sad. I'm sad that my brother has been drunk driving for years and no one stopped him. I'm sad that Ray Pulaski had to take cash instead of seeing justice because he couldn't afford his wife's medical bills. I'm sad that it took my car being destroyed for anyone to pay attention. But I'm not angry. I'm just tired of lying. The courtroom was silent. Gerald Gilmore had no more questions. The trial lasted 2 more hours. Ellen played traffic camera footage showing Michael's erratic driving before the crash. She presented my insurance claim, the damage estimate, the police photos. Gerald Gilmore argued that Michael was a first-time offender who'd made a mistake. He called character witnesses, Michael's former boss, his college roommate, a priest from our church. They all said Michael was a good person who'd made an error in judgment. No one mentioned Ray's recording except to claim it was irrelevant. At 2:47 p.m., the jury went to deliberate. I sat in the hallway, drinking vending machine coffee that tasted like plastic. Caroline had driven up to sit with me. She didn't say much, just sat there, a solid presence. At 4:15 p.m., the jury came back. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. We find the defendant guilty on all charges. My mother's sob echoed through the courtroom. Judge Keene scheduled sentencing for November 3rd. Michael was released on bond. As the courtroom emptied, my father walked past me. He stopped, turned. I hope you can live with this, he said. I can, I replied. Can you? He didn't answer. The 6 weeks between verdict and sentencing were strange. I existed in a limbo between my old life and whatever came next. I worked. I came home to my apartment. I adopted a cat from the shelter and named her Dorothy, after Ray's late wife. Ellen Watkins called me twice with updates. Gerald Gilmore was filing appeals, arguing for leniency, gathering letters of support. He's going to get jail time, Ellen said. The recording sealed it. The judge knows this wasn't a one-time thing. How much time? 2 to 4 years, probably. Maybe less with good behavior. It felt like both too much and not enough. On November 3rd, I returned to the Luzerne County Courthouse for sentencing. The courtroom was more crowded this time. Reporters in the back row, Michael's friends in a cluster on the left side. My parents in their usual spot. I sat alone on the right side. Judge Keene asked if anyone wanted to make a statement before sentencing. Ellen Watkins stood. The Commonwealth would like to note that the defendant has shown no remorse. He has not apologized to his sister. He has not taken responsibility for his actions. His family has enabled his dangerous behavior for years, and without intervention, someone will die. Gerald Gilmore stood. Your Honor, Michael Meadows is a young man with his whole life ahead of him. He's made mistakes, but he's not a monster. His family loves him, his friends support him. He deserves a chance to rehabilitate without the harshness of prison. Judge Keene looked at Michael. Mr. Meadows, do you have anything to say? Michael stood. For a moment I thought he might actually apologize, might actually take responsibility. I'm sorry, he said. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt anyone. My sister overreacted and things got out of hand. I just want to move past this. Judge Keene's expression didn't change. Sit down, Mr. Meadows. She opened the file in front of her. I've reviewed the evidence in this case. The traffic camera footage, the police reports, the recording of your father bribing a witness to cover up your previous drunk driving incident. What disturbs me most is not your actions, Mr. Meadows, though they are disturbing enough. What disturbs me is your complete lack of accountability. She looked at my parents. And I find it equally disturbing that your parents have spent years protecting you from the consequences of your choices. They have done you no favors. They have turned you into a person who believes rules don't apply to him. Michael's leg was bouncing under the table. On the charge of DUI, I sentence you to 18 months in the Luzerne County Correctional Facility. On the charge of unauthorized use of a vehicle, I sentence you to 12 months, to run consecutively. On the charge of leaving the scene of an accident, I sentence you to 6 months, to run consecutively. Total sentence, 3 years. My mother's wail was piercing. Additionally, Judge Keene continued, I'm ordering your father, George Meadows, to appear before this court in 2 weeks to explain his role in the October 2019 incident. Obstruction of justice is a serious crime. My father's face went white. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Michael was led away in handcuffs. He looked back once at my parents, his face finally showing something like fear. My mother collapsed against my father, sobbing. My father held her, but his eyes were on me. There was no anger in them anymore, just something hollow. I walked out of that courthouse into November sunshine. Caroline was waiting by her car. How do you feel? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Empty, maybe. Relieved. Sad. That sounds about right. 2 weeks later, my father pleaded no contest to obstruction of justice. He was fined $7,500 and given 2 years probation. He also paid $4,200 in restitution for the guardrail damage and $12,000 to the insurance company for my totaled Mazda. My parents sold their house in December. Too many memories, my mother told a neighbor. Too much shame, more likely. They moved to a condo in Scranton. I didn't help them pack. My father's $78,000 Cadillac Escalade was sold to cover legal fees. In January, I received a letter from Michael. He'd been transferred to a minimum security facility in Frackville. The letter was 2 pages long. Most of it was self-pity. How hard prison was, how unfair the sentence was, how much he missed his old life. But the last paragraph was different. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. I'm starting to realize that Dad always getting me out of trouble wasn't help. It was just postponing this. Maybe if someone had let me face consequences earlier, I wouldn't be here. I don't know. I'm still angry at you, but I'm starting to understand why you did it. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. I didn't write back. Not then. Maybe someday. In March, I visited Ray Pulaski's grave. It was in a small cemetery on the edge of town, near a stand of oak trees. His headstone was simple granite, engraved with his name and dates and the words, "Beloved husband of Dorothy." I knelt in the damp grass and told him thank you. Told him he'd saved someone's life, probably many lives, by being brave enough to leave that recording. Told him I wished I could have told him to his face. The wind moved through the oak trees. It almost sounded like a reply. By May, I'd been promoted to branch operations manager at Landmark Credit Union. Caroline had recommended me personally. I had my own office with a window overlooking Main Street. I had a retirement account with actual money in it. I had Dorothy the cat, who slept on my pillow every night and purred like a motorboat. I had a life that was mine. I still don't talk to my parents. My mother sends cards on my birthday and Christmas. Generic cards with pre-printed messages and her signature at the bottom. No personal notes. I don't send cards back. Michael will be released in November 2027. I don't know what happens then. I don't know if he'll have truly learned anything, or if he'll just go back to being who he always was. I don't know if my parents will enable him again, or if the fear of legal consequences will finally stop them. I don't have control over any of that. What I do have control over is this. I will never again stay silent to keep the peace. I will never again let someone else's comfort matter more than someone else's safety. I will never again confuse loyalty with complicity. If you're watching this, and you've ever had to choose between protecting someone you love and protecting the truth, I want you to know something. Those two things aren't always in conflict. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their actions. Sometimes love means saying no more. Sometimes love means walking away. If you've had to make that choice and you chose truth, type "I chose truth" in the comments. If you've had to make that choice and you're still struggling with it, type "I'm still deciding." Both are valid. Both take courage. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here.